Coffee with Crime and Sugar by Shakespeare on AO3. Episode 4, Chapter 1. Izuku finishes up the last of his coffee in lieu of answering right away, and then gets up to put his mug in the sink. I'm just a paper pusher for some terrible little company. He answers the other question, well, it technically wasn't a question. A terrible company doesn't sound like much satisfying work. Miyazaki notes. Work isn't always satisfying. Work should have at least a little passion in it. Don't you think? He stops himself mid-sentence. No, mid-question. Izuku turns his head to look at the other, finding that there's a slight shock to his features as he tries to hide his face behind the coffee show mug. Maybe it wasn't a confident thing. Maybe it was just plain restraint. But for what reason? Izuku clears his throat to at least clear the sentence that was engulfed in the space between them. What do you mean, Miyazaki? Something with passion, right? That's what the other had mentioned. Work needed to have a little bit of passion in it. Izuku might find passion in watching his employees get their butts handed to them when he gathers enough evidence to shut them down. To give the other some time to gather the shock on his face and regain composure, Izuku brushes himself with getting one of the symmetric containers to make another to-go meal. He might have survived all this time not combusting. There were a few close calls, but he doesn't think then less than an hour of combined together warrants sharing dinner. Maybe some other time, with candles and wine and dim lighting. Izuku is not looking at him, but he knows that Murasaki is taking his time answering. He wonders why that could be. Maybe it's confidential. Izuku thinks back to when he overheard in the cafe. Does Murasaki give off that vibe? What vibe does undercover hero give off anyways? Izuku doesn't think there's such a thing. Murasaki starts, and when Izuku looks over at him again, he has a pondering look. He's trying to choose his words carefully. I do a bit of freelance work. Izuku just hums, bringing over the symmetric container for him to take, and he could tell him before he could tell no. It gives Izuku an excuse to see him again. Well, that must mean you have a lot of free time. The cafe downstairs is nice if you ever get bored. And well, you know where to find me. That came out way too much like an eager invitation, and Izuku could feel it on his cheeks and the tip of his ears. Those violet eyes stare at him wide and so hypnotizing. They blink a few times before another one of those awful, attractive, so damn attractive, smirks find its way back onto his face. That I do. Oh, Izuku is doomed. But that might just be fine. It's toss and turn center in Izuku's bed. He absolutely cannot get any shut-eye. He's been trying for the better half of 2 hours. His brain just simply refuses to even get anywhere close to blissful REM. Too busy replaying scenes from earlier today when his neighbor was over for coffee. He was no better earlier either. He tried to get a little bit done of work, but he just ended up highlighting a few passages and pinning some files to come back to later when his brain can think of something other than the ridiculously alluring next-door neighbor. Sensing that he's not being able to snooze anytime soon, Izuku gets up from his bed, grabbing his laptop from his desk, and going to the living room with his blankets draped over his shoulders, like the world's most incapable cape. He sets up on the couch, putting on something to keep his mind away from Miyazaki. Odd thing, relying on something as meagering as a crime documentary to keep him busy when he could be thinking about that voice saying his name. He had to, of course, look up the other's name and description on the Hero Network, just to put the old lady's theory in the trash. There were, of course, no matches, but the other had given an alias, after all, so that was kind of expected. Colorfully mysterious and evasive. He's a lot like Izuku, in a way. It's maybe at the part in the documentary where the narrator is describing the mind of the sociopath, using big, fancy psychological words, that Izuku's eyes begin to feel heavy and droopy. He's been having to deal with eye bags a lot lately. Miyazaki has eye bags. His mind unhelpfully notes. Though, if he's being honest, the guy can definitely work those eye bags. Izuku might be a little too deep. Things get muddled in his brain. His sleepy mind thinking about his neighbor while the documentary plays on his laptop, talking about a victim's body who was hidden in an air vent, only to rot and create a putrid stench that alerted the people in the whereabouts. Needless to say, his dreams are weird when he eventually does nod off. He wakes up. It's sometime in the early hours of the morning, the sun's still asleep and the cricket's still awake. He doesn't think anything has woken him up, just that he did it himself. His laptop screen is black, indicating that it's gone and went to sleep, probably long after he did. He'll need to charge it. The space around him is dark, only just a bit of moonlight from the gazy curtains. However, despite the hour, it's not entirely quiet. At first, Izuku assumed it was crickets, but now that he was listening closely, it doesn't sound like that. He angles his head where the couch is pushed up against the wall, holding his breath. It's typing. There's soft clacking of the keyboard coming from the wall that connects to Murasaki's apartment. Is he on his laptop? At this hour? Izuku's no stranger to staying up, doing his analysis work, but he doesn't know what Murasaki's deal is. Hadn't he said he does freelance work? He hadn't really elaborated on what that entailed, though. The typing speeds up a bit, less intermission time between them, and then it stops. A few seconds go by, more clacking happens. This time, they're in the same order, as if hitting the same keys over and over again loudly. There's a frustrated noise on the other side of the wall. A sigh, or a grumble, he's not sure. He hears something slam, maybe a laptop being shut, if it was loud enough for Izuku to hear. Then Murasaki must have a heavy-duty device. Either that, or he's too frustrated to care. But what is warranting that frustration? There's some shuffling noises. Then there's a sound of the door opening and closing. Juggling keys, and the click of a lock. Footsteps moving away. Izuku holds his breath until he hears the crickets once again. He's not sure what to make of any of that. Why had his neighbor left in the middle of the night after angrily typing something? To cool his head from whatever it was? Probably. Or maybe to do something else. Izuku shakes his head, the fabric of the couch frizzling up his curls. He doesn't need to speculate right now, not when he's tired and has murder on his mind from watching that crime documentary before falling asleep. He's sure there's a perfectly plausible reason for what he has just heard. He shuts his eyes, too tired to go up and go back to bed. He'll deal with this tomorrow. Ooh, that last section of Izuku waking up after the crime documentary. I remember the crime documentary. I think he did fall asleep to that. I'm not 100% sure. Again, fuzzies. I haven't read this fic in 6 months. And then the last time I read it, what's it called? I could also be mixing up with other fics, but I'm pretty sure there was a crime documentary that Izuku fell asleep with. But then he woke up to, I think Shinsou was trying to get back into his house via the balcony. And that's what Izuku found, the balcony thingy. I remember the balcony thingy. So I think this takes in place of the balcony thingy. So instead of the balcony thingy, we have the clickly clackly, because Hitoshi is a writer. So that makes sense. Oh my god, I hate that drawing that I made. I made that drawing so fucking fast. I made that drawing 30, 40 minutes. That shit is horrid. But, sorry, I'm looking at the thumbnail drawing. But, yeah, that's so interesting. I think that's so cool that we get a new perspective, a new thing, a new, I love it so much. I'm so excited. I can't wait to read the rest. 3-shot course got me again, but don't worry, no hiatus. I'll start working on the next part right away. Okay, that has nothing to do with it. So I'm gonna just scroll a bit, and then I'm gonna read the first thing I read. First thing I see. I'm gonna scroll towards the middle. Or, no, towards the middle. Towards up, where you would see it. Izuku can't help but think how odd the sentence is, even placed in this conversation. It would definitely sound better as a, what's your favorite type of cat? Or something of the sorts. But there's that weird hitch that is Murasaki's evasion to ask questions. Izuku wonders if it would be rude to bring it up, but his curiosity has always been one hell of a thing. Yeah, we know why he doesn't say questions, right? And it's something that was talked about in the original fic too, so I'm so excited. I'm so excited. As I said, it's I know I'm gonna love it because I love the original, so now watching this get adapted is like, yes, it's a risk because it might be adapted wrong, but this is doing so good so far. So good so far, alright? Some of the words are a little too word for my liking, but like, other than that, I am loving this so far. Like, I love that extra little, instead of the balcony thing, because I'm like, is Shakespeare gonna do the balcony thing? Or are they gonna replace that with something else? And they replaced it with something else, so I'm so happy. Okay, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.